So this is going to be a quickish lesson on lighting. We can get this lighting tab here by going Windows and then we go to rendering lighting and then we pop that there. Okay, now we have a lot of settings here, but what I'm really going to stick on here is the environment at the moment. And I'm also going to come into my scene, and for this default scene that I've got this skylight here, or direct light. So if I go to the inspector, for most of our games we're going to want it at night to have that scary tone, I'm guessing. So if I turn the emission down to 0 and then I look at my in-game, you'll see that even though I have my light down to 0, it's still pretty bright, which is kind of not what we might want. So if we come to this lighting tab now and we go to the environment, we can come to our default skybox, and in fact we're going to have to make our own skybox. So in the materials, let's go create. We can go material and we'll call this skybox. Now there's a few different skyboxes we can have. We can download a skybox, we can get a cube map texture, or we can get a HDR texture from a website. But for the benefit of time, let's just come here and come down to on our material, up here on shader, going to come to skybox, and we're going to pick procedural. So we've got the panoramic textures, the cube map texture, or the 6-sided textures that we can make. You can Google that and check that out if you want to take this a bit further and have a more custom skybox. But for us, we're just going to go procedural. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this skybox that we've just made, and in our lighting tab we can chuck this on here. So first thing I am going to do is on this skybox texture on the inspector, I am going to turn the sun off because I don't want the sun to be there. So if we that will show you an actual sun in the sky, and the high quality shows it with like a little halo around it, and the sun size shows how big the sun's going to be. Right, so if we have a look at this atmosphere thickness, we can see what we can do here. We can drag this atmosphere up from the bottom. So we want to drag that really far down, if not like to like 0.1, something like that. That'll do for now. Then we want to drop this sky tint really low down, and then we also want to drag our ground all the way down. So have something that looks like this here, but we're still quite dark. I'm going to just see if we can drag that atmosphere up just a little bit, so we've got that hint going up there. We're still really bright. So if we go into our lighting tab and go under environment, we can either come in here and get an environment lighting from our skybox, so we get it directly from there, or we can say color, and we can pick a color here that we want to get. Now let's just for the moment just go skybox, and what you'll see is we have this issue still of things being bright in our scene, and that's because of our fog layering up. So we can turn that off, and you can see that everything turns like super dark quickly. I still want the fog on, but rather than it being bright, I want to darken it down a bit. And we can also change what the density is still. So maybe we want to brighten our scene up just a little bit. So we can come to our skybox and let's change our sky tint. To be a bit brighter. Hasn't made that much difference. We can change our exposure here. Let's have it quite dark. And again, it's always just playing with these features. So we can change the intensity multiplier on here. Just going to brighten it up or darken it down. So I've got it really dark here. So what we can do now, it's really dark in our scene. We can come in and we can add a light to our scene. So there's obviously different types of lights we can have in, just like in Blender. We've got a point light which emanates from the point. We have if I come to our inspector, we can have a spotlight that obviously is just like a spot, and we can mess around with a few of the things in here, right? We can drag these out, make it wider, and then this is the intensity of the inner circle. We can also change the range of it if we just want it to be just touching the ground there. Yeah, we can kind of get that spotlight feel. It's quite nice. We can also add a cookie here, so this is like the texture that it's firing down. So I don't know, let's chuck in this help sign, you know, so you can see that is now being put onto the floor, that image texture. Yeah, kind of cool. So we might also want to add something to our character. So where's my character? Here it is. And my game comes like my camera moves around, so I can come in, add a spotlight there, and I don't want it coming straight out of my eyes, because when you carry a torch it doesn't really come out of your eyes. So I'm going to put it off closely where the hand is. I'm going to just pull it in and to the side so we get a different angle on our light, and then I'm going to come down to shadows and I'll put on hard shadows, and under resolution I'll just call it medium. We might even want to call it low depending on the mobile settings. So also I'll just bump up the intensity, and I don't know, I'll change the color just because. Let's change the range so we get that range. Okay, there we go. Kind of happy with that. So let's just press play and then see what we're getting in the game. Now let's drag this on here. So you can see now in the game we've got a more spooky vibe than what we had before. Now lighting's a massive topic, and you know, there's people whose only job it is to light stuff, and getting all of the settings, getting all of the the light maps and stuff like that is something that you might have to read up a little bit on if you want to take this to the next level. But for this, just have a play around and have some fun.